Michael, do you have that piece of paper? The order? Nope. Come on in, come on in, come on in, everyone in. Thank you, sir.
You're usually right next to me.
Where's Ray? Oh, there. It's right there. You're gonna be first, then Pastor Black, then Autumn, then Jennifer, then Reverend Holt. Okay. Today, in a powerful ruling, Judge Ellis entered an injunction preventing the Trump administration from using unlawful violence against the press, against the clergy, against protesters, and against folks observing all over this community. We applaud Judge Ellis's powerful ruling and the protection that it will provide. American courts have to act in this precarious moment to uphold the Constitution and to uphold our democracy. For weeks, the Trump administration has deployed Gregory Bovino and his gang of thugs to terrorize our community. They have tear-gassed dozens of residential neighborhoods. They have abused the elderly. They have abused pregnant women. They have abused young children. On our streets, they have used weapons of war. We want to be clear. Every person who is associated with or who has enabled the Trump administration's violence in Chicago should be ashamed of themselves. What is the Trump administration's excuse for this unlawful behavior? It imagines that Chicago is a war zone full of terrorists and criminals. But as Judge Ellis powerfully reminded us in her ruling today, that is not the Chicago that we know and that we love. In the past few weeks, we have seen a Chicago where neighbors and parents and teachers and community organizers and religious leaders and business people and elected leaders and people from all walks of life speak out, stand up for one another, and protect this city. We have seen democracy in action, and there is nothing that can stop it. The many lawyers standing here and the brave clients who have brought this case are just a small part of this large community effort. But we want to be clear. We lawyers will fight in court with all of our energy and all of our resources to defend our community and to defend democracy. And we will win in the end. You're going to hear from a lot of the attorneys who are part of this effort, and you're going to hear from some of our clients, but first I want to hand it over to John Lovey.
My name is John Lovey. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Lovey & Lovey. As Steve said, this case is about the right to protest, the First Amendment in this great country of ours. You know, ICE has come to town. They said they were going to go after murderers and rapists, but we all know how that's played out. They are attacking communities. They're grabbing people at work, at Home Depots, people on the street, people with their kids, people near schools, and some people don't like it, and they have a right to protest. They have a right to stand up and say, we don't want this, go home, leave our community. And they have protested, and they've protested peacefully. Outside the Broadview facility, people you'll hear from today have made their voices heard and say, we disagree with this. When ICE is grabbing people on the street, grabbing construction workers, grabbing people walking, not harming anything, people who have been part of the community for 20 years, people are not happy about it, and they're protesting, destroying families, hurting our economy. We don't want it. So when they are making their voices heard, the agents have responded with force. They've responded with gas, with non-lethal bullets, with physical abuse, in direct retaliation for people saying, go home, we don't like it. They're met with basically militarization by basically soldiers with enormous guns, enormous shows of force. Oftentimes there's more officials, more agents, more soldiers than there are protesters, and they're trying to squash the protests. And that caused us to go to court and to ask the court to enforce the Constitution, to enjoin them from that lawless behavior. And there was a hearing, and that hearing was yesterday, and it was a time for evidence. So you got the two narratives. The plaintiffs put on evidence, and you'll hear from these witnesses, that the protesters are peaceful. They're saying what they say, and they're not causing violence. There's not lawless mobs. We in Chicago know that's true. But the government has this narrative that they're putting out in sign bites and on Fox News that, oh, criminality, lawlessness, riots in the street. It's just not true. So at the hearing, it was a time for evidence. And when we put on the evidence was protesters are protesting peacefully, and they're being shot at, and they're being gassed. When it was the government's turn, they had nothing. They got 500 hours of body cam. They couldn't find any examples of what they're saying in the press is happening. Nothing. Where's the evidence of weapons? They showed a guy in a body cam with a shield. That's their example of weapons in Chicago, a shield. They said, well, where are these assaults? You're saying agents are getting assaulted. Well, look at this woman. She kicked the tear gas canister that we threw at her. That's an assault on a tear gas canister. That's what they had on video. That's what they showed. What they're saying isn't matching reality. And, you know, the world doesn't know what's reality. People don't live in Chicago. People in Chicago are doing something, so that's why you have courts. And we had a hearing, and the judge heard evidence, and she concluded unambiguously the government's evidence is not credible. They didn't have anything. They had nothing. All they have is just calling us criminals and lawless, and it's just not true. So it was a very important day. The judge issued an injunction that stops ICE and the federal agents from attacking protesters, from using non-lethal bullets, from gassing people, and they are now instructed that they have to respect the First Amendment and that the press in particular is allowed to do what the press does.
So you're going to hear from our client Raven Geary now, who is one of our journalist clients who is a plaintiff in this lawsuit. Me? I'm Steve Art, A-R-T from Lovey & Lovey.
I'm used to being on the other side of this, so feeling a little awkward. I don't have much prepared like everybody else. I wake up every morning now and I check what ICE is doing. I spend my mornings tracking their activity across the city. Right now, this very moment, Bovino and his caravan are circling Little Village in Bridgeport. They fired chemical weapons just a few minutes ago. I can't tell you if it was pepper balls or tear gas. They've arrested people in Aurora and Cicero this morning. And every day there are so many incidents and so many kidnappings, it's impossible to keep up. In agreeing to even be a plaintiff on this case after an ICE agent in a skull mask shot me in the face down the barrel of my camera lens, I hesitated. I'm not big on the system, but I kept coming back to some lines from a poem by Diane De Palma, who was arrested twice by the FBI for her poetry. She writes, in Revolutionary Love Letter number 8, "No one way works. It will take all of us shoving at the thing from all sides to bring it down." The most authentic I can be right now is in telling you all lawsuits aren't enough. Journalism isn't enough. Protests aren't enough. Rapid response isn't enough. Know your rights trainings aren't enough. Elections aren't enough. Most days, I don't know how to make a life anymore amidst all this devastation. And what I've experienced at the hands of these agents is but a sliver of what they're doing to their captives, to the families they're ripping apart, and the people they're sweeping off the street. What's happening around us defies description at this point. I'm running out of words to explain the depth of the violence and the terror, and I think someday we may have to invent new words for this period in history. It's occupation, it's war, it's also the beginning of a genocide. ICE has already killed and maimed people, and they will continue if not stopped. We need to be clear with the words we're using to describe what's going on. This is white nationalism. They are removing people by the thousands from our communities because of the color of their skin and shipping them to prisons. We are not even 1 year into this administration yet, and it will get worse if we don't stop it. If people think a reporter can't be this opinionated, let them think that. I know what's right and what's wrong. I don't feel an ounce of shame saying that this is wrong, and I should not have to be standing here today. As someone who is often extremely critical and cynical about the systems in place that are enabling this, I'll also say this. We can't afford cynicism right now. Whoever you are, you have a place in stopping this. Maybe it's in the courtroom, maybe it's in the press, maybe it's in the streets, but you do have to do something. You do have to try. You were born here at this time and in this place to play a part. Chicago doesn't belong to the feds. It belongs to the people who built it. And even above that, it belongs to the indigenous people who were here first, people who are not that distantly related to the ones migrating here in search of a better life. So to Commander Bovino, I just have one final thing to say, which is get out.
Thank you, Ray. Next up are attorneys David B. Owens and Elizabeth Wong.
Hi, I'm attorney David B. Owens. I'm also a professor at the University of Washington School of Law. And I am in this country. I live and I exist because my dad came from Nigeria and was able to get his MBA in Washington State, a faraway place I was born. That is why I exist. That is why I'm able to be here. And as it turns out, we're all here because our parents came from somewhere else. Most of us here are non-native people. We are here because our parents came from somewhere else, because they wanted to give us an opportunity. They wanted to give us the chance to move forward with our lives. So why we brought this lawsuit, Liz is in a very similar background, is because it's a fundamental right that people have to exist and to try to work hard for themselves. And that's what's being attacked here. The idea that there is a right of dignity that we all have in our own humanity, that we all have a right to get together and say, you know what, we're not going to stand up for this. And so we as attorneys are compelled to be here. No pasarán. Come with us. They shall not pass. Make our fight your fight. And that's what this is about. Why we are here. Because we are all in this together. We are a collective of people in the city of Chicago, in Waukegan, in Evanston, in Aurora, in Logan Square. They gassed 3 blocks from my house. This could happen to anybody and everybody, which is why we need you. Other people who have come here so they could have an opportunity to make our fight your fight.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Wong, W-A-N-G. I'm an attorney at Lovey & Lovey, and I am an immigrant. I came to this country with my parents when I was 2.5 years old, and I'm a naturalized citizen. And I also resided in Chicago for over 20 years. And seeing what they have done and what they've accused the people of Chicago and in the other towns and villages in this district of doing, the lies, the fabrications, it's really, really heartbreaking. And this case affects all of us, as David was saying, personally, because we are all from somewhere else. And so I think that one of the most important things that I want to say about this case, about the court system, and about the press is how important it is to speak truth to power. And I don't want to be, trite, but I am going to quote George Orwell in his words from 1984. He said in that book, the party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and your ears. That was its final, most essential command. And I urge everyone, not just the press who are assembled here, but everyone, to be the eyes and ears to fight the lies that we're seeing coming out of this administration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Liz. Next up is Reverend Black from the First Presbyterian Church of Chicago in Woodlawn. Reverend Black.
Good afternoon. My name is Reverend David Black. I am the senior pastor of the First Presbyterian Church of Chicago. In my parish, folks call me Pastor Black, and you're welcome to use either. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. In Jesus' name. I am here to stand in solidarity with my neighbors as the gospel has commanded me. If the videos of ICE's assaults on myself and other religious leaders have moved you, please be reminded of those we cannot see, both undocumented immigrants and documented citizens who have been abducted and disappeared in the Trump administration's vicious campaign against public safety and human rights. Please join me in praying for our neighbors, praying with the meditations of our hearts, and praying just as much with the words of our mouths and the works of our hands and our feet. Yesterday, I testified as a witness regarding the events of September 19th, 2025. On that day, I was violently assaulted by ICE agents at the Broadview Detention Facility at 1930 Beach Street, while I was praying and ministering to the agents and those in detention within the facility. I stood wearing my clergy collar and with my arms outstretched towards 3 ICE agents in militarized tactical gear, standing on the roof of the facility. I warned them of the spiritual consequences of their actions, and I pleaded with them to repent and to believe the good news that Jesus Christ unconditionally forgives and restores all sinners who earnestly repent and commit themselves to peace, truth, and love. In response to these prayers, ICE agents opened fire on me. Without warning, they shot me at least 7 times, including on my face and on my head. The company which produces pepper balls in Lake Forest, Illinois, warns on page 4 of its safety manual that aiming pepper balls at a person's head, face, spine, or neck can cause serious injury or death. As the independent observers at Human Rights Watch have reported, this is not crowd control, but a campaign of intimidation and a clear message that dissent will be punished. As a follower of Jesus Christ and a minister of his mercy and grace, and a beneficiary of both, I forgive the ICE officers who shot me and physically assaulted me. As an American citizen, I am moved to call for justice and accountability so that these assaults on my civil rights and freedom of religious expression will never be visited upon another person in these lands. Lastly, I am standing before you to bear witness about the pluralistic, leaderless, and sponsorless autonomous collective of protesters who have been assembling at Broadview and throughout the city of Chicago to endure the brutality of ICE as they bravely denounce the Trump administration's evil agenda to bring heinous violence against our neighbors and our communities. I do not speak for this collective, but I do bear witness to their value, to their virtue, and to the peaceful and compassionate nature of our protests against ICE. We have brought our voices in prayers, in words of condemnation, and in songs of liberation. In response, we have been shot with near-lethal munitions, we have been tear-gassed, we have been doused in chemical weapons, concussed, and subjected to campaigns of terror. There are those who have characterized my acts as political resistance. They are wrong. I am a pastor. I am not a political activist. I have gone to the Broadview ICE facility 7 times to pray, to evangelize, and to call ICE agents to repent. My sincere desire is to see ICE agents delivered from the wickedness which binds their souls, and for all whom they have kidnapped and brutalized to be restored to the homes and the communities where they choose to belong. Thank you to Judge Ellis and her staff for affirming and upholding our civil rights. Our work now continues until the same rights and justice apply to every person who chooses to live in these lands. You will continue to find us on the streets and in the courts, striving in love for God and for our neighbors to realize the dream of an America where all are liberated and at peace. May God have mercy and save these United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Black. Next up, attorneys Teresa Kleinhaus and Wally Hilke.
Good afternoon. My name is Wally Hilke, W-A-L-L-Y-H-I-L-K-E. I'm a law professor and I direct the Community and Justice and Civil Rights Clinic at Northwestern Law School. My colleague Tess and I are going to talk a little bit about what the lawyers have done in this case pales in comparison to what community members in Chicago, in Aurora, in Evanston, and throughout the area have done, and their bravery in this moment. For months, people have opposed the brutal tactics of immigration agents in their communities and at the Broadview ICE facility. And for months, people have had reason to believe that if they go out and speak and express their voices, they will be harmed. They will be tear gassed. They will be arrested. They will be shoved to the ground. They may suffer traumatic brain injury. They may have weapons pointed at them. We have nearly, or maybe more than, 80 declarations from people who have experienced things just like that. And all of those people were brave twice. They were brave when they went out to speak, and they were brave again when they came forward in this court. In this moment where everything is uncertain, it is the bravery and strength of those people in our communities, whether they are seeking out immigration agents to record what they do, or if they are going outside in their bathrobes because their communities are being terrorized. They have raised their voices, and the court has responded. And that is the reason and the force behind what has happened today in the preliminary injunction, and it will be the continued effort of everyone. I will encourage people, if you go to tinyurl.com/ChicagoTRO, you can report a violation of the preliminary injunction. That has been used to collect violations of the temporary restraining order. tinyurl.com/ChicagoTRO. And we hope, and the rights that have been protected today will only be protected if these community members, religious leaders, journalists continue to exercise their rights in this moment.
Good afternoon. My name is Teresa Kleinhaus, T-H-E-R-E-S-A, Kleinhaus, K-L-E-I-N-H-A-U-S, with the law firm Lovey & Lovey. And the opportunity to represent the clients in this case is probably one of the most meaningful cases that we've ever had an opportunity to be a part of. The level of organizing in Chicago is unrivaled anywhere. The Trump administration keeps talking about professional agitators, professional protesters, and what inspires me the most about the movement that we're building here is that these people are not professionals. They are your neighbors who see something wrong happening in their neighborhood, and they run outside and try and stop wrongdoing, try and illuminate what's happening to their neighbors. And so what I love about Chicago is that all of the people here stand up for each other, they stand up for their communities, and they're not doing it as professionals. They're building a movement for peace and justice based on their principles and their conscience. So we're so inspired by our clients. We look forward to everything they're going to continue to build here.
Thank you, Tess. Next up, Autumn Reedy-Hamer, who's one of our clients.
Hi, my name is Autumn Reedy-Hamer. I'm a wife, a daughter, a mother. I've always believed in standing up for my community, and that belief is what led me to the Broadview ICE facility. I went there to lend my voice to my neighbors. I spoke up because ICE agents were harming members of my community, and I could not stay silent. I spoke out because that's what it means to be a good citizen, to care for others, to help when someone is in need, and to raise our voices when we see injustice. I joined a peaceful protest, and I was met with violence. Tear gas, rubber bullets, pepper balls, and flashbangs. I watched friends, teachers, journalists, and people of faith cruelly targeted by federal agents. A flashbang went off beside me, and I suffered hearing loss. I witnessed my parents, kind senior citizens who have always believed in the power of protest, shoved and intimidated for standing on a public sidewalk. But today, the court has affirmed that what happened to us was wrong, that our right to speak, to gather, and to protest is still protected by the First Amendment. The court's ruling makes it clear our voices matter. Our right to dissent is not a crime. It is the foundation of our democracy. This victory, although small, considering the scope of what's happening in the city, belongs to everyone who has ever stood up for their neighbors, everyone who has ever said, this is not right, and everyone who believes in justice, compassion, and truth. You are seen, you are heard, and you are loved. Ordinary people can and should stand up to power. And as a mother, I can go home tonight and say to my children that their voices, your voices, will not be silenced. We spoke out, we stood firm, and this time we prevailed. But let me be clear, this fight is not over yet. We must continue to stand up and speak out in the face of injustice. Thank you.
Next up is Hayden Johnson from Protect Democracy.
Hi, thank you all for being here, and I'm joined with my colleagues Katie Schwartzman and Connor Gaffney from Protect Democracy. We're very honored to be with this amazing coalition of top lawyers in this city and just the most courageous clients that you could imagine. And I think it's important for us to be reminded that this country was born from the very idea that we get to express our dissent of what our government does, we get to pray, we get to report on these things without fear that the government will use force against us. And the Trump administration across the country and here is shaking the foundations of that, trying to use fear to prevent people from exercising their core First Amendment rights, the rights that we hold at the very essence of what it means to be an American. Fortunately, these brave Chicagoans have stood up for themselves. They've stood up for their rights, and they stood up for what is right. And Judge Ellis saw that. She saw that today and issued the preliminary injunction that will protect the people's rights. But we have to be vigilant in ensuring that the government respects what the court has ordered and what we all know to be right and true, that the government cannot use force to stop people from speaking their mind, from praying, and from reporting on what is going on in this city. So I'll walk through a little bit of what the court ordered. I've got the order in hand. I'll remind you that if you go to tinyurl.com/ChicagoTRO, you can see more. So what the court did, just in layman's terms, is said the role that the press plays in all of this, in holding and making sure that we have visibility as Americans and knowing what the government is doing is essential. And because of that, just because other people are told to move, journalists get to remain. They get to be there and report on the events of the day, because we want to know what they are saying about what events are happening is the reality, and the press plays an essential role in that. The second is that people have a right to be in public places and to express their views peacefully, and the government cannot force you to leave a public place that you have a right to be. The third category of things is that the government cannot use force against people that are being nonviolent. That's just a basic ground rule. And that force has come in many ways. That force has come in the form of tear gassing and shooting rubber bullets and pepper bullets at people, including in the face. And it comes in the form of striking people with vehicles, using chokeholds. I mean, it's run the gamut. And the court's order lays out all the ways that force can only be used when objectively necessary for a very violent offender. And we just haven't seen that happening in these events. We've seen peaceful people subjected to these things. The court also lays out a variety of compliance measures and fact-finding measures for us to know what is going on and that the government is respecting this order. So we need to know badge IDs. If someone has violated people's rights, we need to know who. And then we need to know that the government is properly instructing their officers to follow the injunction, to follow the constitutional rights of the people assembled in Chicago expressing their views. So again, with gratitude for this incredible team, we're very honored to be part of it. Who's next?
Thank you, Aiden. Next up, Attorney Jennifer Crespo.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Crespo. I first really want to thank my attorneys, I've been 5'2.5" for about 20 years now, so I appreciate you doing that. But aside from that, I am the daughter of immigrants. My mother is Filipina and Polish Jewish. My father is Puerto Rican. I am a former journalist. I am currently practicing law as an attorney, and I have been an observer. As the daughter of immigrants, I have often been very scared lately, not for myself, but for my mom, my sister, who look like me, who could be targeted and attacked just because of the way that they look. But today, standing here with my fellow plaintiffs and the attorneys, I'm pretty emotional because I feel for the first time that maybe we aren't going to lose. As a former journalist, I am so proud to be talking to all of you, and I can't thank the journalists who have been on the ground. I can't thank them enough for the reporting that they have done. I want to be like you when I grow up. However, as an attorney, today, with this order, with this ruling, I feel justified. I feel like I made the right decision deciding to pursue the legal profession, because look at how powerful this is. Finally, as an observer who's had federal agents point weapons at her in Hoffman Estates, where I grew up, who's been tear gassed in Chicago, where I now work and live. As an observer, I've had nightmares every night since those experiences. But today, I feel empowered. Today, thanks to my boss, I get to have the rest of the day off from my paying job. I have my whistle, I have my camera, I have my phone, because we have heard reports all day long that federal agents are back at it. You're going to hear that URL again, but report, my friends, report what you are seeing. To my fellow observers, to the people who are on the ground, I'll be there in about 15 minutes. The law is on our side. Thank you very much.
Next up is Reverend Abby Holcomb, who is from the River Forest Methodist Church.
Hi, my name is Reverend Abby Holcomb, and I use she, her pronouns. In the Gospel of Luke, Jesus says, "The Spirit of God has come upon me to preach good news to the poor and set release to those held captive." That was the scripture that was going on in my mind every time I went to Broadview, but I didn't know that it would lead me to a place that smelled like tear gas and choked protesters. I didn't know that when I called ICE agents demonic and reminded them that they guard the gates of hell, that they would shoot only at me for saying that. But I know that they terrorize our neighbors with tear gas and rubber bullets and chemical agents, and that the people of God have showed up to bear spiritual witness, to declare liberation, that the captives be set free. Whenever our neighbors are made to feel less human, to be disinherited and disenfranchised, we will always come with our witness and put our bodies on the line if that means we must, because Jesus declared, a day of liberation is coming and the captives must be set free. So with this new restraining order put in place, I have a special call for all people of faith to continue showing up peacefully, to speak truth to power, to stand in the way, because our neighbors' lives and well-beings are on the line and we cannot stand idly by. And particularly to United Methodist, because our denomination declares we vehemently oppose mass deportations set forth by the President Trump. These proposals are antithetical to our foundational values and the foundations of democracy. So it is in the name of the freedom that God wants for all people that we will continue to show up with our prayers and our hands and our feet with unrelenting solidarity with our neighbors. And I have one more message for Greg Bavino, Kristi Noem, the ICE agents who shot at me and all other ICE agents and President Trump. God is always on the side of the oppressed. So which side are you on?
Thank you, Reverend. Next up is Rebecca Glenberg from the ACLU of Illinois.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Glenberg. I'm an attorney at the ACLU of Illinois. This is a day to recognize and to celebrate the power of the First Amendment. Our amazing clients saw their government doing injustice, and they came out and they spoke out. And journalists, saw their protest and saw their outrage, and they came out and they documented and they broadcast and they wrote what they saw. And when these individuals were met with unbelievable and unjustifiable brutality, they spoke out again, this time to the district court, where they told their stories, where videotapes were played and viewed, where a judge listened to everything and viewed all of the videotapes taken by ordinary people who came out in their neighborhoods and videotaped. And the judge did justice today. And this is how democracy is supposed to work. We speak out and we fight for justice, and sometimes we achieve justice. Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Craig Futterman. I'm a clinical professor of law at University of Chicago Law School and have the honor, when everything has been said and done, to try to say a couple of closing words. Mostly first, gratitude. Judge Ellis's ruling today, the court's ruling today, shows what happens when ordinary people have the courage, the bravery to come together, that America can and will win. When ordinary people come together to fight for our most basic rights, we can win. And that's what this is about. We also know, as so many of our folks said, that this isn't enough, and this isn't enough standing by itself. This is just one part of it. But as everyone has said too, this is fundamentally about the bravery of so many people against government repression. The bravery of each and every one of the folks that you've heard from and folks who you haven't heard from, who come forward, put their necks, put their bodies on the line for our most basic American freedoms. People, including, I'm standing before here, a bunch of people in the media and press, and much respect. We don't have to agree, but we're here about the fundamental freedom of the press. People are simply just working to try to report what's going on in a state of government repression. One thing I just got to mention is Judge Ellis today. At a time when judges themselves are being attacked and assaulted for trying to protect our most sacred constitutional rights, this judge in the Northern District of Illinois, right here in Chicago, she stood up and she did just that. I was moved to tears today. I was moved to tears as Judge Ellis read her ruling, and I was moved to tears for so many reasons. I thought about my people I grew up with, as I thought about, though, this team, and I've never been, and I really have to be most grateful for this team, including this legal team, because I've never worked on a team like this before, where each and every one of these lawyers, and I want to name out first Lovey & Lovey Law Firm, really name that firm out, who's put everything, all the resources of this entire firm, all these other lawyers who also came together, not getting a cent, to do the right thing. And it's not about the lawyers, because what I also learned, and what I've come to appreciate even more and more, the staff, the paralegals at Lovey & Lovey, the staff who I don't think they've slept. I don't think the folks have slept for I don't know how long. And they're doing this to stand up and fight for America, for us, for each and every one of our clients, for each and every ordinary American, for each and every ordinary citizen of Chicago, for each and every person who's just come up and put their neck on the line. We're here. And as I said when I started, this is a fight, and this is a fight for our country, the fight for the future of what America will be. And what I take from today and why I moved from tears is when we, together, ordinary people, come together, put their necks on the line, and fight for our rights, America can, not just can, but we will win. Thank you all.
Thank you, Greg. And we'll take any questions you all have. So every single time that Greg Bovino violates the injunction in this case, we and the community report on it. We will file something with the court. We will make a record, and we will ask for sanctions. And we will make sure that this injunction is enforced across the region wherever these government agents go. I think at this point, given that we haven't filed anything, I'm not going to talk about the sanctions that we're planning to seek. What I'll say is the court has a lot of power to make sure that federal agents who disobey its orders are brought to heel, and we expect that Judge Ellis will use all of those powers to make sure that these federal agents are obeying her orders. I will also say that Gregory Bovino was in here last week, sworn under oath on the stand, and said he had absolutely no problem following these orders. So to the extent that the Trump administration and the agents here from the Trump administration on the ground are constitutional officers sworn to the Constitution, we expect that they will follow the system that exists in our democracy and that they will follow this order. So a couple of thoughts. First, they have been following the TRO to some extent. There were violations. There was a lot less violence than there had been in the month previously. In addition, when Greg Bovino was called into court to testify on the stand here because of all of the violations that we filed, what did we see? We saw the tear gas suddenly stop. In the 2 weeks prior to him being hauled into this building, they had tear gas neighborhoods in a period of something like 14 days, 7 times. Since then, and I don't know what they're doing right now as we speak, there's been very little tear gas deployed. So we are seeing some level of compliance. We expect with the additional evidence the court has considered, the more robust injunction that will last now for a long time into the future, that the reporting and the compliance will continue. But at the end of the day, it depends on the press reporting. It depends on community members observing and reporting this misconduct. It depends on community members going out and saying to those agents, you are not welcome here. You must stop doing what you are doing. We as a collective, as people, are powerful, and perhaps even more powerful than a single court with a single order. No. I think we are not asking for no law enforcement. We are not asking for the Trump administration to say all the ICE agents have to get out of Chicago. What we're saying is, if federal law enforcement is going to be here doing work that it is authorized to do by Congress and the executive branch in any administration with any political view, then they have to do it in compliance with the Constitution. And this case will persist, and we will continue to pursue it as long as they are here to ensure that when they are interacting with civilians in northern Illinois, that they do it in a way that complies with the Constitution. And so that's the future of this case. I think that the Trump administration is all bark and just a little bit of bite. And so when they're ordered by a court to comply, when they have to come and testify under oath about why they've done a thing, I think that has an effect. But I think the biggest effect is the effect of the community tuning in and realizing that there is lawlessness on the streets and going out. So you see, in Lakeview, in Old Irving Park, you see, down south of here, that people are coming out and they're saying, don't throw that tear gas at us. Don't throw the tear gas at our children. And that has an effect. And I think it also has an effect when people go out and they say, what you have been doing here in our communities is disgraceful. And we want you out of here. And we want you to leave our neighborhoods now. And, people are saying it in much more, strong terms than that. But it has an effect. And it, like any of us when we interact with one another, if you are constantly meeting, your force is being met with folks who are speaking out against that force, I think it has a deterrent effect, and I think you're seeing that across the Northern District of Illinois. Say that one more time. So the restrictions that are in place with the preliminary injunction that was entered today are very much like the restrictions that have been in place since the court issued its first temporary restraining order back at the beginning of October. Very few changes. It restricts force just the same way. It could be violated just the same way. So you're seeing relatively the same order.
I expect that within either a couple hours or a couple days, you're going to have some press release from DHS, or Christy Nolan's going to get in front of the camera and say, well, this is all nonsense, it doesn't matter, we're not going to listen to the Stanford does. I mean, this gets back to the question of enforcement, but if the administration is at least publicly flouting what the court says, I mean, is that ammunition for you guys? Is that hurt you guys in the future violence? How do you deal with an administration that at least publicly is saying, we don't give a damn about what the courts are saying?
They're publicly sometimes saying we don't give a damn about what the courts are saying, but they care. They're participating in this system. Their behavior is modified by court orders. While they've tried to cheat, while they've lied in proceedings, while the Department of Homeland Security has released press releases that are just full of fabrications, at the end of the day, the action of the courts to protect our democracy is having some effect, and we expect it will have an effect in this case as it continues.
Yes, my name is Locke Bowman. I am a proud partner in the law firm of Lovey and Lovey.
My question is about the deposition, since you were doing the questioning of the police of what we saw. Judge Ellis clearly said that he lied in that deposition. I think a lot of people were wondering how he could have said what he said. Do you think that he thought he was lying? Is that a possible question?
That's a deep question. I don't know the mind of Gregory Bovino, but let me say that there have been a lot of complicated questions that have just been asked about the power of litigation, about the power of protest, as well about the power of truth. My colleague Liz Wong talked about the importance of speaking truth to power. Just as much that involves the importance of challenging power to speak the truth to us. And that, I don't think we should be silly and pretend otherwise. We are in a moment of crisis. We are in a moment in which the administration openly challenges the legitimacy of our courts and our rule of law. We are in a moment when folks are coming out to protest and are being violently assaulted, our friends and neighbors violently assaulted for doing things that our Constitution protects. I don't know what's in the mind of Gregory Bovino, but I do know that he got told by the honor in so many words, or in substance, I suppose I should say, by the Honorable Sarah C. Ellis this morning that he was being untruthful. And sooner or later, if you're a liar, your lies will catch up to you. And Gregory Bovino wishes to be a smooth liar. He was, I think, in that deposition, and as Judge Ellis agreed, unmasked as a liar.
Any other questions? The order lasts now until we have a full trial, and so it will be in place as long as this case is going. I don't remember.
10 p.m.
Any other questions? Thank you all so much.
There's so much fucking eloquence going on here. It was amazing.
They'll turn it into 90 seconds.
Yeah, I know. They'll turn it into 90 seconds.